Let's talk.
Giles Brown.
Oswald Mosley, A Short History of Fascism is an engrossing examination of Britain's flirtation with fascism and the troubling allure of authoritarianism, both past and present. I'm delighted to say that the author of Oswald Mosley and A Short History of Fascism joins me live on the line now, Andrew Sangster. Andrew, good morning to you. Are you receiving me?
I am just about receiving you, yes.
You can hear me loud and clear. Marvellous.
It's not your fault, it's my deafness.
It's your deafness. Okay, well, let's just see where we go with it, Andrew, in that case. Because the listeners will know this, but I am that worst sort of creature, an armchair historian. And when this landed on my desk, I got very excited indeed, because there is something fascinating, worrying, about the Oswald Mosley story. And he is quite a character. I mean, he's charismatic, isn't he? Explain a little bit about why you decided to write this book.
Well, Mosley was charismatic. That doesn't make him a good person, does it?
No.
He was just as dangerous as many other charismatic people today.
So,
Does that answer your question?
Yes, indeed. And so he begins. I mean, doesn't he begin as a Labour Party member?
Sorry?
Wasn't he a Labour Party?
Say that again?
Wasn't he a Labour Party politician to begin with?
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay. Explain Mosley's career. It begins. He fights in the First World War. He's a Labour politician.
Well, he mixed sides. He wasn't interested in either party. He just wanted to be the single man at the top. And we see that happening all the time, even today.
Yeah, indeed. So he begins. What's his political journey like then? And why does it, I mean, is his discovery of fascism, is it the same way that Mussolini discovers fascism? Where are the, if you like, the...
Mussolini, of course, in his great march on Rome in 1922, caught the attention of many people who are inclined that way. But we use the word fascism somewhat lightly. We've had fascism since tribal chiefs, going back to the caveman. Some of them may have had a few henchmen around them, but they expected to be obeyed. They were autocrats. A fascist is an autocrat. There are all sorts of autocrats. Monarchs can be autocrats and often are autocrats. And so the whole business of fascism or totalitarianism or phalangism, it can all boil down simply to autocracy. And autocracy in politics can be very dangerous.
So when we look at fascism in terms of, so we say, early 20th century fascism, you talk about Mussolini, the March on Rome, etc. Are we deciding that fascism is the belief that one set of elites, one race should be superior to the rest and run the rest?
Yes, it grew very much. It came back, if you like. During the 19th century in our country, in England, there was a degree of democracy of one sort or another. But as early as, I think it was about 1899, a chap called Houston Stewart Chamberlain wrote a very clever book on how important single leadership is. Autocracy is, fascism, call it what you will. It attracted, of course, people like Hitler, but also it attracted many other people. It wasn't long after that another writer called Anthony Ludovici wrote a book called A Defense of Aristocracy, in which he actually said, we've got to get back to aristocratic rule. And while he was doing that, as a matter of interest, he introduced attacking Jews again, and also became obviously racist with it. And the result was, of course, that it started to catch on at two levels. First of all, the aristocrats at the top end of society, they were beginning to think, we're being left out in this new world. We're the natural leaders and we should be in our place. On the other hand, at the other end of the extreme, if you go down to the good old-fashioned working class, they were having a pretty miserable time, and any alternative seemed better to what they were suffering at that time. So when they looked up and see Mussolini making improvements, and other countries seeming to head forward under the leadership of one person and not the windbags of Parliament, it started to look fairly interesting.
And of course, Mussolini can,
but he wasn't the first.
Mussolini can sort of can hark back to a glorious past, can't he? He can draw his parallel lines between the Roman Empire and Italy, and he goes about with Abyssinia, making a new Roman Empire, and of course Tripoli and Libya and all that. That all be so he can hark back to that. When it comes to Mosley, of course, and looking at the aristocracy, because there's a new world order, isn't there? There are Bolsheviks. It's the protocols of Sion, isn't it? It's the Masonic Bolshevik Jewish conspiracy that's going to bring the whole of Western society down.
Yes. So what's the question?
So the question is, Mosley can look at this and go to the aristocracy, for example, the Mitford sisters, who will, the Mitfords who will come into this story and say, look, I'm going to be the new leader for the British people.
Well, some did. Some did think that way, and some still think that way to this day, unfortunately. And we see it happening in America to a degree. It's the people's. As soon as people become uncertain about the current system, they start looking for alternatives. And fascism, or autocracy as I'd rather call it, has always been there, as seemingly more successful.
So how does Mosley go about founding the British Union of Fascists, and also, what sort of people, not just sort of the aristocracy, but how does he get sort of working class people involved in British fascism?
Well, the first thing he did was he got quite a lot of support from members of Parliament. That mustn't be forgotten. There were people on both sides of the traditional divide of the right and the left who were beginning to think this may be a way forward out of the mess we're creating at the moment. It was very easy down, if you like, in the back streets of London and the big cities, where poverty was continuous and seemed to have no end to it. And there's Mosley standing up, promising, very much like Hitler did, a better future, a more prosperous country, a country more even, as long as it's led, he said, basically, by me.
And did he point out, as always, that the ills of a country, the ailments of the country, were all down to a particular group? Then, obviously, he's singling out the Jews and the communists at this point.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow you there.
Okay, Mosley is pointing that the fascists need somebody to blame. It always has to be the fault of somebody else. So obviously Mosley is in this case looking at the Jewish population, the immigrant population, to blame.
Yeah, strangely enough, he wasn't so anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish at the start. But when he tried, because he needed to get financial support from Mussolini and from Hitler by this time, and it was to stay on side, you had to be anti-Semitic with Hitler, dedicated to that way. And he soon fastened onto it. But he was a racist because even after the war, when he was released from prison, he got mixed up in the Notting Hill riots, which because of the West Indians who were arriving. He was a racist fundamentally, and there's no getting away from that, I'm afraid.
If you look at interviews with Diane Mitford, who he marries, lazy lady old
Diane Mitford,
yeah. The Mitfords are an interesting family, to put it mildly. Unity Mitford, etc. But she is an unabashed Nazi until the end of her life, isn't she? There's no character arc here, is there? They believe this stuff until the end of their life.
With the exception of one daughter. The whole family appears to be pro-Nazi.
Yeah. No
question about it. And there's also little doubt that Unity was in love with Hitler himself, and there seems to be sufficient evidence to show that they may well have been sort of, I don't know how to put this, let's put it this way, quiet lovers.
Yeah, indeed. But Hitler's not impressed by Mosley, is he? He's not impressed by... If Hitler takes over the British Isles, he's not going to make Mosley the leader. He'd rather have the abdicated king, for example, back, the Duke of Windsor, as a leader.
Well, of course, the Duke of Windsor was himself extremely right-wing, as you probably know, and very much admired Hitler. And there was possibly some hope in his mind that one day he might be replaced as king. So, he might replace the king. Yeah.
and of course, the Duke of Windsor is permanently out of money as well, isn't he? So he's throwing up. He is strapped for cash, the Duke of Windsor. That's why in exile he keeps visiting all these places and looking for somewhere to spend exile. How much? Because in modern folklore, the clash between Mosley's black shirts and the Jewish population in East London has become this huge, the Battle of Cable Street.
Battle of Cable Street.
Yeah, has become almost like this. It's almost the second best known battle after the Battle of Hastings, some would say. Yeah. How much of an event is that in Mosley's trajectory, or is there more made of that than actually? Because it was really Mosley's black shirts fighting the police rather than the population, wasn't it? Or the population of Cable Street fighting the police, and not. It wasn't a battle between two opposing forces.
The violence which took place in Cable Street took place in many other places as well, because the great thing about a democracy is it allows freedom of opinion. And when those freedoms of opinion both become a bit edgy and violent, it breaks out. So the Albert Hall, for example, was a scene of almost a battle on one occasion. When Mosley's thugs walked in to quieten down the opposition. Cable Street was an astonishing situation because not only it wasn't just the Jews, the whole population rose up in that area against Mosley. And it became a significant part of Mosley's story. But we mustn't forget Cable Street wasn't the only place where there were momentous riots.
Mm. When war breaks out,
Sorry?
When the war breaks out, when World War II begins, it's not long before the Mosley is interred. He's put in prison, isn't he? As is his wife, Lady Mitford. Is that the end of British fascism? Would you say at this point, with the
No.
No. Right.
It's continuing. His fascism didn't stop until he died. And it continues now.
So when you come to draw a parallel between the events of 90 years ago and the events of today, what parallels are you drawing with Mosley and?
Well, I'm going to be stepping out of place here, and I'll get into a lot of trouble, and it doesn't really worry me. I haven't got long to go in this life, so what? But I'm looking at Farage.
Right.
And I'm seeing there an emerging Mosley, a chap trying to get support from his colleagues, left and right, to join him in what is obviously a one-man leadership type party. So I see similarities there. I'm concerned about Ozymandias Trump.
Ozymandias Trump. I haven't heard him called that before, but that, Andrew, is genius.
That's my next book. From
Right.
Ozymandias to Trump, but no one will dare publish it because we're watching in Trump the breakdown of a good democratic society, which has allowed what I can only describe as a maniacal, idiotic, I shouldn't be saying this, but I mean it,
right,
autocrat to try and lead their whole country and taking the whole world into a possible war. And that is why I say it still continues. And we see it in Russia with Putin, deep concerns all around the world. And look how let me put it this way. In any democratic society, when it moves too far left and becomes what I call toxic, and then you get communism, and communism doesn't work. If Marx was operated on properly, it would work, but it never works because it's in the hands of humans, a bit like the church, and therefore it fails. And the result is basically that we have no communism in the world. We just have autocracy where it was. Now, the same can happen on the right wing. There's nothing wrong with the Conservative Party in the old days. It's no worse than the Labour Party. They're just windbags, as they've been described before. But when it becomes too right-wing, too toxic, then you start getting close to fascism. And that does result in single leadership autocracy. And we're seeing that happen with Trump. We're seeing Putin as a result of communism.
The problem is that we have...
Sorry?
The problem we have is the narrative that people are told is that Britain is broken. The world is broken. What we need is a strong figure to strain the swamp.
Yes,
and even
that's
young
what
people
Hitler said.
Yeah, but I know.
Hitler used the same thing.
And in Spain, we have young people saying, "Oh well." In Spain, we have a poll that says young people are saying, "Ah, yes, but life was better under Franco because everybody had a job, the trains ran on time, etc., etc."
They're saying that about Stalin in Russia still. Life was much better under Stalin than it was under Perestroika. But the fact is, of course, this is why history is not repeating itself, but we get hints from history, and we're ignoring them.
So, what do you hope that people will learn? Is this a warning to people about that we are heading downwards, we are heading to authoritarianism, that we're heading to a new fascism?
I think people should start returning to reading their history books. There's been a drop in history reading, a significant drop, and it's got to come back, and historians have got to make it more interesting. Because if we look in the past, we can get these hints about where things go wrong. And the danger is autocracy. This is why I wrote the book on fascism. The danger is autocracy. Leadership by one person without the rest of us having a say. That leads to war and disaster. And it's happening. It's happening in every generation, and it's happening at the moment.
The book is called Oswald Mosley and A Short History of Fascism. It is by Andrew Sangster, who we're talking to today. Andrew, if people want to find you online, do you have a website? Do you do social media?
I don't have a website.
And you don't TikTok, then, I presume, or anything like that?
I don't TikTok, no.
Well, Andrew, it's been wonderful to speak to you today. Thank you so much for your time. The book is called Oswald Mosley and A Short History of Fascism. It's by Andrew Sangster. Andrew, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.